With over 21 characters to pick from, it can be a little overwhelming with who to pick when you're first starting out in Deadlock. And if you're on the fence on who to pick in the beginning, hopefully this video helps you out. And if you're new here, why not hit that subscribe button? But anyways, let's dive in. The first character I recommend is Talon. He provides a decent amount of consistent damage through his longbow and has less aggressive damage fall off. He can take off angles and harass the enemy lanes with the press of a button. His kit is also on the simpler side, which makes him a great choice for a starter hero to get familiar with. So how does Talon actually work? Well, Talon's first ability is called Charge Shot, where it's pretty self-explanatory, and well, he charges up a powerful shot that after a brief moment flies towards wherever you're aiming the shot. You keep in mind that it is a projectile, so it travels slower than your bow, with a very slight downward trajectory over very long ranges. But that doesn't really matter, as it pierces through enemies and doesn't seem to have any real damage fall off over range, making it a great ability to look for poke damage across any distances. Holding your primary fire key, so your left mouse click, will make you hold on to the charge shot until you let go of the button key. So it allows you to charge up shots around corners, or you can use this for enemy senses of timing. If you know that they're going to dodge the moment that the charge shot would go out, you can also start the charge shot mid-dash, so you don't need to stand still in one place when using it. Now, when it comes to upgrading the charge shot, at level 1 you receive an extra charge, simple enough. At level 2, your charge shot will deal additional damage. At level 3, its damage scaling has improved, meaning that it deals more damage based off of your build, in addition to having a reduction to its charge delay, which lets you fire off more charge shots in a shorter time. Now, something to note that's interesting is that the charge shot actually scales off of spirit power, another thing to keep in mind. Now, Talon's second ability is called Rain of Arrows, to which he launches himself airborne, then slowly glides down. But while you're in the air sliding down, any shot fired during the glide will be a multi-shot, so instead of firing one arrow, you actually shoot out 5. And it goes to the direction that he's aiming at or pointing. It's worth noting that each one of these 5 arrows deal the same amount of damage as a singular one, meaning that if you hit all 5 arrows, then well, you'll deal 5 times as much damage per shot against your target. Now, although the duration of Rain of Arrows may have run off, while you're still slowly falling down or still in the air, you still have the ability of multi-shots. This means if you're mid-air, you could use your ability to get some air and then try sniping enemies and say that other lanes need your help. Well, go help them out. You might even end up securing a kill. Now, something to know, if you're trying to use Rain of Arrows, if you hit your head on, say, a doorway, an alley, or something like this sort, if you hit your head against the ceiling, it will cap how far you can go up since you gradually glide downward. As it's active, your Rain of Arrows might be cut short if you touch the ground before its normal duration. You can also manually cancel Rain of Arrows at any time, and if you do, I recommend double hitting the crouch or slide button. It consumes 1 stamina and sends you down towards the ground much faster. Now, they did add the ability that you can dash while in Rain of Arrows. However many stamina bars you have is the amount of times you can dash in the Rain of Arrows ability, which I can say is a double-edged sword in a way. If you honestly need to dash while in Rain of Arrows, then you should probably get out of it. Now, moving on to the upgrades of Rain of Arrows. At level 1, Rain of Arrows receives a cooldown reduction. At level 2, as long as you're airborne, you will receive additional weapon damage, again while you're airborne, and hitting enemies while you are airborne will also apply a movement slow for a short duration. And at level 3, the Rain of Arrows gives you a significant amount of speed and weapon lifesteal for the duration that you are airborne for. Talon's third ability is called a mobilizing trap. It kind of looks like a snare trap or even a bear trap. Now, the trap is visible to your enemies, and if an enemy enters the trap circle, any enemy, including minions inside that circle, will be snared for a short duration. Now, what's interesting, it acts more like a dome than a circle, as you can place it on walls, upside down, and all of that sort. Now, the trap has a short arm time, so you can just throw it towards the enemy, and if they don't get out of the way, well, they're going to be affected by it. As for upgrading it, at level 1, the immobilizing trap has a reduced cooldown. At level 2, its duration is increased, and once it's hit level 3, Talon will deal noticeably more damage against any enemies that were hit by the trap for the next few seconds. One way I see myself using this a lot is start with your Rain of Arrows, dealing damage and slowing the enemy. Once you first start doing the initial Rain of Arrows damage and slowing the enemy, immediately throw a trap onto where you're hitting them at. This will give you hopefully enough time that they're slowed enough that the trap will also end up triggering on them. A pretty easy way to get a kill. Now, let's talk about Talon's fourth and ultimate ability. It takes a little bit to charge up before it releases a spirit owl that you manually maneuver towards a target. The owl explodes on impact with any enemy or object, damaging and stunning the enemies within its range. Steered with your aim, steered with your mouse movement, you can speed it up by pressing left click, and you can manually detonate it by pressing spacebar. The turning with the owl is a little delayed, so keep that in mind. What's interesting is that if you get get any kills with the guided owl, you actually get permanent spirit power per kill. Now the owl usually has enough duration to fly from essentially across the map. The best case uses I see with this is the early laning phases. See an enemy low on the map, simply snipe them with your owl from across the map. You see a teammate that's about to get ganked or teamed up on, will simply hit them with the owl and they're stunned. Hopefully your teammate can get away. You can also use it to initiate a fight, and you can also use it to disengage a fight. Something to note is make sure you use it in a safe space, as you can get ran up on pretty fast. Now let's actually talk about the levels. So at level 1, the owl has a significantly shorter cooldown. At level 2 and at level 3, it will instantly kill any enemy that are left under 22% after its initial hit. In most cases, you don't need to be at 22%, as if you have that permanent stack and you're spirit stacking, then you can basically almost one-shot people. Now there's two builds that I recommend for Talon, one being a spirit build focusing around the charged arrow, which I have a build called Arrow Tapper, and the second build focusing around the Rain of Arrows ability, which I have named Duck on Quack. Both are good builds. In the end, it all comes down to preference. Now the next character I definitely recommend if you're just starting out in Deadlock is Wraith. Wraith is a pretty simple hero and is pretty forgiving, especially for newer players. Most of her kit revolves around you left clicking, and that's really about it. But anyways, Wraith's first ability is called Card Trick. When activated, it throws one card towards your crosshair, and whatever which way you move your crosshair, up, down, left, right, in a circle behind you, the card will follow it. That is until it hits maybe a wall or even a player. The card will always go to where you're aiming at. It can even circle around and come back. The card deals damage in an AoE. Now something to note is that you actually need to charge up the cards. The fastest way to charge up your card is by damaging enemies, that being of course enemy players or even enemy minions, but the fastest way is players. So now let's talk about the upgrades. At the first level, you get an additional card that you can throw out. At level 2, it will deal an additional damage, and at level 3, you will charge up new cards. Now her second ability is Project Mind. It lets her teleport towards the crosshair after a small casting time. Teleporting leaves behind a trail so people can know where you're teleported to. It can be pretty much used in any direction and has a, well, pretty far range. Wraith's third ability is called Full Auto. It temporarily boosts the fire rate of your primary weapon, while also applying those same effects to any nearby teammates, and they receive half of that bonus. When you upgraded it, at level 1, you receive a cooldown reduction. At level 2, you deal additional spirit damage per bullet during the full auto, and at level 3, you also receive a decent amount of the bullet damage you deal back as bullet lifesteal. Wraith's fourth and ultimate ability is called Telekinesis, and it lets you target an enemy hero and send forward a debuff that travels between you and them. After the debuff or the little ball hits them, they get lifted into the air and get stunned for a short period of time. Once the lift ends and they aren't already at the respawn screen, they will also receive a decent amount of damage. While it does have good range, activating telekinesis at a super far range, or if you're near some sort of cover, is definitely not the way to go. The best point of action is typically when you're a massive team fight, you want to single out one target, and that's the best way to go about it. The best combo to slap on her is essentially either TP in, telekinesis someone, slap your full auto ability, then spam cards at her as fast as you can. This will usually result in you getting the kill. You could also do the same thing but different. You run in, hit them with the telekinesis, full auto your team, and then TP out if you feel like you're gonna die. Now let's talk about our last character on the list. I think someone who's just starting out doesn't really have the best idea of what's going on. A character like Mcginnis is definitely a really good first pick, as she's pretty simple to learn. So pretty much anyone can pick up Mcginnis and be super useful with her turrets, healing, and large magazine. She's an excellent hero if you want versatility and a great curve to learn the game on. Mcginnis's first ability is called Mini Turret. You deploy a mini turret that will automatically shoot enemies. The turret expires after a limited lifetime. Turrets gain 30% of Mcginnis's max health and has a 60% spirit resistance. Of course, they deal reduced damage to minions and objectives. So on upgrade 1, you get +1 ability charge and turrets apply +25% movement slow, which is pretty crazy. For the second upgrade, you get +10 meters attack range and 10% turret rate of fire. Then the last upgrade is +45 turret DPS. Pretty insane. Her turrets help her in getting a lot of souls or the money in this game, so if you're not really confident, playing Mcginnis is definitely a must. Mcginnis' second ability is called Medicinal Spectre, or essentially an AoE heal. You deploy a spirit that heals nearby enemies. On its first upgrade, you get +35% fire rate on units being held by the Medical Spectre. Second upgrade is -18 second CD or cooldown. Then the last upgrade is +5% max health regen per second. Basically, maxing her health increases its potency, giving you an attack speed buff and lets you use it more often. The final point scales it with total HP, so your tanks will love you during a long, drawn-out engagement. Mcginnis' third ability is a spectral wall. Yes, it's literally just a wall. So you create a wall that divides the terrain in half. On creation, the wall deals damage and applies slow to nearby enemies. After casting the wall, you you press your left mouse click, or you press 3 on your keyboard to erupt the wall early. On the first upgrade, it removes 1 stamina and it amplifies Mcginnis' damage by 25% on hit enemies for 7 seconds. So if you hit someone with the wall, you deal more damage. On second upgrade is minus 15 second CD or minus 15 second cooldown. And on the last upgrade, it adds a 1 second stun to enemies hit by the spectral wall, making it great for isolating enemy targets. Now last but not least is her fourth ability, or her ultimate ability, which is called Heavy Barrage. You unleash a volley of rockets that home in on a targeted location. You're allowed to be in that ultimate for 13 seconds. It has a 100-second cooldown on no upgrades. It could be really good when getting towers or getting enemies at a farther range. On the first level, it applies a 35% movement slow. Second level is a minus 50-second cooldown, and the last level is plus 30 damage per rocket. Maxing your ultimate makes it slow opponents usable very often and does a ton more damage. The power spike in damage in the early game is huge, adding to her strong mid and early game capabilities. I picked on Mcginnis as the third easy to learn character. As well, she has turrets that helps you last hit minions, deal free damage to enemies. She has a heal to try to keep you alive more often than not. She has a wall again to try to keep you more alive, and well, her ultimate ability is keeping enemies at range, so hopefully you reduce the amount of times you die. Now regardless if you feed on Mcginnis or not, she does extremely well in taking out towers, so even if you're not doing the best for your team, you can at least help them by taking objectives. Now if you found this video useful, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.